Hi everyone, this is Cindy from Dear Mom Reads and Writes. Welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've been here before. Oops, just checking my mic. This is video number 4, I think. So thanks for coming. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about 2 books, 2 road trip books, because A, I love road trips, and B, because they're just amazing books. So one is new, and one is older, not like classics older, but older. And both I absolutely adore. And I adore road trips from just going on them as a child. I don't know if you had the opportunity to do that, but we had a station wagon, 6 kids and all arms and legs and elbows and knees. And we would go on these road trips. Every year we were lucky to go to Canada to visit relatives. And we'd leave at night. We'd leave. I grew up in Connecticut. So we'd leave about 6 o'clock, have a cooler of food. And, of course we'd be starving as soon as we'd leave because we were a bunch of kids, but we would leave. And as the sun set, it was just amazing. I felt like I was, I don't know. I could have been leaving on a plane to go on some fantastic journey. It was just, riding under the stars, being up when I wasn't supposed to be up, looking out the window, smelling the air. The wind in my hair, the radio on softly. Dad loved, I don't know, there'd be Nat King Cole and I don't know who else playing on the radio, and they'd be softly talking, Mom and Dad. And I just absolutely loved it. So I don't know if, I love vacation too, but I love the road trip, the getting there just as much. So anyway, without further rambling, today's first book is the new one. And this is The Road to Tender Hearts by Annie Hartnett. And don't you just love this artwork? The cover is absolutely gorgeous. And I do read new fiction, not as often as I would like, but I stumbled onto this thanks to, let me double check my notes. It is called South Main Books in Salisbury, North Carolina, and they had it outward facing, and it was a staff pick, and between the staff pick and the artwork, I was, added it to my basket. So I'm so glad I did. Annie Hartnett has written a couple of other books, which I put on hold at the library since I love this one so much. And anyway, let's jump right into what this one is about. So I don't know, you can't probably see the artwork so much, but the book's about this guy right here and all the other people in the car. So, sorry, something fell. It's a story about a trip across country. And the protagonist is PJ Halliday. He's a 63-year-old, no longer working because he got fired from the post office. He's a guy who's strangely won $1 million, but he's an alcoholic. He lives in the same small town in Massachusetts as he, always has. He loves it there. And the year is 2014. So the story, there is a little magical realism. There's a cat in the beginning. It's a cat named Pancakes who joins the road trip, but I'll leave that aside. But the cat comes with them and kind of plays an important role in the story, but I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, we meet PJ. He's in his house that is filled with piles of things. It's cluttered, and, he kind of talks to things in his house a little bit. And he wakes up, he has a coffee, and he walks down the street and has breakfast with his ex-wife and his ex-wife's partner. And yeah, right? So they do this every day, and she still cares about him, doesn't love him anymore, but really is an amazing person to do the things, he's a sensitive soul, takes things to heart, and she cuts things out of the newspaper for him that he might get too upset about, right? Who does that? She does. And so on that's his life. After breakfast, he goes home, has a nap, and then goes to the bar for the local pub for the afternoon and evening, where he has a lot of friends. He's people tend to like him. He's kind of funny. He's a sociable guy. It's a protagonist I had a hard time liking, but he's flawed and human, and I grew to like him more throughout the story. So anyway, on this one day, he's at the house for breakfast, and his ex-wife and partner are heading on a trip to Alaska the next day, and he's sad and angry that they didn't invite him along. Can you imagine? They're his best friends, honestly. But it turns out that his ex-wife's partner is going to propose marriage. He shows PJ the ring. He asks him to be the best man at their wedding, and that kind of makes him feel better a little bit. So anyway, he leaves the house, goes back to his routine, goes back to his own home, being sad and upset, takes his nap, does his thing. Well, in the newspaper, this seed is planted, so he reads obituaries. That's a thing. I guess some old people do that. I know my parents did. I don't, at least not yet, but he reads the obituaries, and he sees in the obituaries that his high school crush is now a widow. Her husband died. He went to high school with both of them, and he decides, while his ex-wife and partner are in Alaska, he's going to borrow their car, which they leave for him because he also has had DUIs. He's not supposed to drive, but they leave him the car anyway just to go get groceries and, take care of himself. And he's going to take the car and go across country and win the heart of his high school crush who he hasn't seen since high school. He is a dreamer, but that's his big master plan. He has money. I think I said he won $1 million. He won the lottery, so he has money. He has a car. He's going to wait it out a couple weeks for his DUI to expire because he doesn't want to. There's some responsible seed in him that doesn't want to take the car while he's still, is not supposed to drive. So in the couple weeks period till his DUI expires, he stops drinking. He goes alcohol free and goes through detox. During that time, his daughter Sophia, who's in her 20s, she comes around. They have a difficult relationship. He's, an alcoholic, and there has been a tragedy in their lives that they don't talk about. And, obviously it affects each of them very deeply, his ex-wife, he, and his daughter. She can't take much of her dad, but his master plan as she comes around, I don't know if she went to the house, I can't remember, but is, well, maybe my daughter can come with me on this trip and she can share the driving. She can start, maybe we can leave sooner and she can do the driving because he's anxious to get out to this woman to, win her over. So in addition to all of that, PJ is surprised by 2 orphan children. They are put in, he's next of kin. And so these children are Ollie and Luna, 9 and 10 and a half, brother and sister. And they've been through a lot. And they are kind of his, if he decides to keep, them, or they're going to go in foster care. And these 2 kids are amazing. Anyway, he hems and haws. He doesn't know what to do. He decides to take them, and if his daughter comes, she can help take care of them. Yeah. So the daughter surprisingly decides to go. I think her concern is more for the kids, and she's worried what her dad is going to end up like. This trip is so crazy. She decides to go along. She's angry, and she's got a lot of baggage, but so they go on this trip. They leave. They leave Pondville, Massachusetts, and they head west. And this trip is filled with, as you can imagine, ups and downs. Oh, let me backtrack by saying, in addition to PJ's dream of rekindling this fire with an old crush, one of the child Luna also has a mission for this trip. Like, they don't want to go with this guy. They don't know him, but they think, well, he could get us to where we really want to go. Well, she wants to go. Her brother's not so crazy about it, but she has an ulterior motive with going with this crazy old guy who they don't know. So they set out on this trip, and if you've seen Little Miss Sunshine, kind of like they meet all these quirky characters, interesting people along the way, ups and downs, forward and back, and they make their way across country. So it's a story about redemption. PJ coming to terms with facing some hard truths, and it's written beautifully. It's funny, dark humor. It's heartbreaking. It's interesting. It's all the things, and I couldn't recommend it more. So please read. I'll show you this beautiful cover again. The Road to Tender Hearts. It's a road trip you'll want to get on. And I hope you enjoy it. That's that book. Our next book is a very different road trip. So that's a new book published in 2025. The Remains of the Day was published in 1988 and written beautifully by Kazuo Ishiguro. I hope I said that right. He's written many books since then. This was published in 1988, and he won the Booker Prize that year. So this is another road trip, but a very different one. This is a road trip about regret and redemption somewhat. So it's interesting, of course, with road trips, there's this linear progression, while The Road to Tender Hearts is moving forward, backward, but forward. This one is really going back because Mr. Stevens, the protagonist in this story, has not spent much of his time in his life questioning his decisions, it appears at least. So, The Remains of the Day. Mr. Stevens is a butler at Darlington Hall, and we start the story in 1956. The owner of Darlington Hall now is an American man, and he and his family have not quite moved in. He's been there back and forth, but they haven't all kind of settled in. And he encourages Mr. Stevens, while he's going back to the States, to take a vacation, take one of the incredible cars, and take some time off. And so Mr. Stevens probably has never taken a vacation. It's hard to tell. He doesn't talk about any other vacation. But Mr. Stevens is not one. He's also concerned about staffing at Darlington Hall. It's not quite living up to his standards that once was Darlington Hall, which there was a Lord Darlington that he served. He started working there, I think, in the mid 1920s, so post-World War I through present. So he's been there forever. And in Lord Darlington's day, they hosted big dinners and events and political events. And now it's not that. It's going to be a family home, but staffing is so short. There have been some mishaps Mr. Stevens is not happy about. And he decides to go on this road trip, to see an old acquaintance, a friend. They've stayed in touch over the years, Miss Kenton, who's now Mrs. Ben, who used to work at Darlington Hall, but she left years ago to get married and move away. So his hope, he gets a letter from her about the same time saying, reminiscing about the past. She's left her husband. That's kind of happened, it sounds like, a few times over the course of their marriage, and is, longing for the past. And so Mr. Stevens thinks, well, maybe I can talk her into returning to Darlington Hall as head housekeeper again. That would solve many of his staffing issues. So he sets out on this journey. He travels across England and staying in small towns and bed and breakfasts. What happens, instead of looking forward, he spends the entire trip looking back. He starts to look back. He talks a lot about how to, dignity and becoming a world-class butler in his eyes, and serving to the utmost. And, service is always number one. So he starts to really look back on his life, though, and wonder if maybe service isn't everything all the time, that emotion, it's okay to express your opinion now and then. Yeah, it really unravels as he looks back, and he stays, he meets people along the way, but the journey is his internal journey. Yeah, Lord Darlington. So what happens with Lord Darlington, and while he's serving, in the glory days, so to speak, of Darlington Hall, Lord Darlington is sympathetic to Germany after World War I. He thinks that they were too harsh on them, and he has a friend he fought against in the war, but they become friends post-war. He goes to Germany, he sees that people are suffering, and he's interested in maybe persuading government to, go easier on Germany, to help them. And he's, so he invites all these dignitaries from other country, from France and other politicians and influential people. Anyway, so over the years, there's these big events, and it takes us through takes us through that sort of post-World War I up to World War II. And Lord Darlington, make some decisions that in hindsight maybe weren't so great. But Mr. Stevens at the time never questioned anything. And there is heartbreak along the way. His father, not on the present trip, but he looks back on some times that he just kept serving when maybe it would have been okay to take a breath and show some emotion, to express some emotion. He hires his father, who of course was a butler as well, to work at Darlington Hall. His father's in his 70s, probably not, what he once was, but he hires him as a footman, I think. And his health starts to deteriorate. And gets worse. And there's a scene I had to, after I read it, I had to put down, not about his father's health so much as Mr. Stevens' response during a big event at Darlington Hall. And I just had to stop and take a deep breath. Ooh, microphone. It was heartbreaking, beautiful and heartbreaking. And so, Mr. Stevens is thinking about all of this. And he wanted to probably impress his dad all along, who was a great butler at one time. That scene, but anyway, the person he's going to meet, this kind of jumping around here, but he's thinking about her too over this time when she was young and first started. But Miss Kenton is passionate and does express her views to Mr. Stevens, who is her boss. When they meet, regularly at night and the remains of the day to discuss issues of the house and planning, and not so much personal, at least we don't get a window into that. But she's strong in her beliefs, and she tells him what she thinks of some of the things going on in at the house, and some of the decisions Lord Darlington's making, where Mr. Stevens looks back and thinks he didn't respond at all emotionally to anything. He never questioned anything. So, his going to see her, he's it builds up, like his going back and thinking, he always respected her work. At the time, he maybe didn't respect her passion, her beliefs, and that maybe, you know, maybe he would have done things differently. We don't know. And I can't get over how wonderful it is. I did read it again a few weeks ago, and reading something when you're 30-ish and reading something when you're 60-ish, it hits you differently, but it's just as powerful. But life has a way of, we get a little more accustomed to some of the heartbreak that happens in our lives. So not accustomed, but we know what these things can be like. So he does finally, so he's looking back this whole time, and he does finally meet her, and they, meet and have lunch and get together. And I'm not going to give you any spoilers. Also, that's a scene that I had to put the book down and just breathe in and out again. So beautifully written. So touching and heartfelt. I urge you to read this book. It's still wonderful after all these years. And then after you read the book, please see the movie. The movie, of course, stars the amazing Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson. I don't remember if I said this already. If I did, so be it. But I saw the movie or read the book first, and I watch the movie now and again. It's just, they did such a good job in keeping with the story. The acting is brilliant, as you would imagine. And I couldn't be happier to recommend it. So 2 road trip books that are very, very different, but both totally worth reading. So I highly recommend them. I look forward to your comments if you've read them. I'd love to see to read what you think about these books. And if you haven't, I hope you get an opportunity to. If you like road trip books, like I said, these are very, very different, but equally wonderful. So I thank you again for watching and for coming back if you have. And if you're so inclined, please hit the subscribe button, and then you get all the latest, greatest information coming from Dear Mom Reads and Writes. So I'm a rambler. I'm rambling. I should have called it Dear Mom Rambles and Writes, but here we are. So thanks again. I hope to see you soon. Bye.